please put your names and from where you're dialing in so that we know exactly where you're dialing in, from which uh, part of the world that you're dialing in, and your name if you have already done, and um, see it through. So we will be um, looking at, uh, we don't allow recordings of that. We will have our own recording. So please make sure that you are fully present here on the systems and ask questions. So I'll get started. Thank you so much, John, for joining us today at the workshop webinar on site reliability engineering. So I'm just going to go ahead and open up the agenda for today. So this is going to be an hour of a session where we're going to talk about some of the topics. So the primary objective of the webinar is site reliability engineering career opportunities. Is it a myth or reality? A lot of people around the world who have attended our training programs, consulting workshops, have asked me a lot of times, what is the growth for site reliability engineers? Why do we need to care about it? And now we come from an operations background, we come from development background, we come from service management background. How is it going to help us, right? So we thought at TaUB Solutions, we wanted to give them a more practical insights of what opportunities that you have to embark on a journey on site reliability engineering, right? So the agenda for today that we're going to cover, and I want to make sure that you get enough amount of value in the 1 hour that you spend with us, is to understand really what is site reliability engineering and why it matters. Some of the industry trends, I'm going to share a Global Pulse report of 2023 from site reliability engineering on the demand for SRE. People have this confusion whether DevOps and SRE are the same thing, are they different? So we're going to talk a little bit about demystifying the relationship between DevOps and SRE, how they complement each other. What are some of the career opportunities for site reliability engineers? And I think it's important to start being more pragmatic on what does the SRE opportunities look like. In fact, my team has been publishing reports every week on the SRE job opportunities. I will also ask you to sign up for TaUB Solutions on LinkedIn page so that you get notified for upcoming opportunities that you have on site reliability engineer. Because over the years, we have built a good corporate relationship, and the corporates come to us and ask them, Suresh and TaUB Solutions, you train, on an average, we train about 2,000 people every year on site reliability engineering, right? And close to about 600 people on SRE practitioner. So for us at TaUB Solutions, site reliability engineering has been our bread and butter. So we will probably share some experiences and insights on how this is going to help you in your journey. How do you get started on the SRE journey if you are new? So I want to make this more of interactive Q&A part of it rather than just death by PowerPoint. And some of the experience of how TaUB Solutions has helped build capability of SRE worldwide. And then we'll have a lot of for question and answers. If you're not speaking, please keep it on mute so that we don't get disturbed. My team here within this group will be looking at questions, and then we'll be helping us to ask at the right intervals. But that's the whole kind of scope. So I'm kind of going to look at people from where they are dialing in, from which part. Lokesh from Hyderabad, Siam, Mahesh has joined, Anup, Srinath from Sydney. It's pretty late for you. Thanks, Srinath and team. So it's very important. Hi, Siam. Nice to see you. Hopefully, you're traveling back there. And so it's very important for us to understand what the heck is site reliability engineering? Because everybody is talking about SRE, but in reality, what does that matter, right? So a little bit of background for people who don't know about TaUB Solutions. I'm the managing director of TaUB Solutions. I have the entire team with me, Satya, Jaya, Kunal, Ishmit. The whole team is here. So our vision is to take our customers and partners from the current state of maturity to the envisioned end state using gamification, training, consulting, and coaching services. So our approach is very simple. We follow a ATC model. We assess, which is your existing asset state, if it's pipeline, if it's your service management, it's IT operations. Then we do training, which we have training in terms of DevOps, site reliability engineering, DevSecOps, value stream mapping, and also on the tool side of it, right? And then we do a comprehensive consulting, which is preparing people on a 30, 60, 90-day plan. What we have realized is a lot of times we need to take some baby steps, iterative approach to move towards the target. Because if you don't do that step, the ability for you to reach there will become very difficult. So we wanted to give a very pragmatic opportunity to play this and move forward. So a little bit about background of myself. As I said, I'm the managing director of TaUB Solutions. TaUB Solutions is present in India, Singapore, US, and Australia. This was co-founded with my partner, Satya, in 2014. So we are going to complete about 10 years as a company. And we indeed very happy and for being pioneering the site reliability engineering aspect of it. I have overall 23 years of industry experience, started off in software development, then moved to IT service management, IT governance. The last last 4 years has been predominantly on DevOps, DevSecOps, reliability engineering. I just request if people are not speaking, keep it on mute so that we will not have any background noise, please. That will be really appreciated. One of the things that I also do is speak in conferences across the world in terms of thought leadership. I was given the ITSMF Contributor Award in 2013 by ITSMF Singapore. I'm also one of the top 25 influencers in service management for 3 consecutive years and a recipient of 4 Excellence Awards at Washington, D.C. So that's a little bit of background. We're going to go into, and as I said, I'm also the co-author of SRE Practitioner. TaUB Solutions offers SRE Foundation as well as SRE Practitioner. Practitioner is much more deep dive into 3 days. SRE Foundation is for 2 days. And we go into much more deep dive with use cases that can be applied in real world, right? I've also been a co-author of observability. So a lot of people who are aware of monitoring, just monitoring tells you the symptoms, but it doesn't give you true causes. So one of the things is about how to do root cause analysis, like we call it as unknown unknowns. So we have a separate 2-day workshop called observability, and we have also launched AOps Foundation. So we do SRE Foundation, Site Reliability Engineering Practitioner, then we do Observability Foundation and AOps. So we have the entire value chain kind of focused as an end-to-end part of it. So for people to get an understanding about SRE overview, I just wanted to get a feeler on the chat. How many of you are aware of site reliability engineering? You can put yourself as beginner, intermediate, or an expert. Beginner is someone you're starting to learn. You've heard someone talking about SRE. The second would be intermediate. You've known about the basic concepts. You're getting a little more into it. Expert is you have implemented projects in SRE. So if I can request the team, which is just joined in, to put on the chat window, I'll get a general sense of the audience so that we can curate this webinar to be more meaningful around where you like what. So if you can put yourself on beginner, intermediate, or expert, that will help us to get a sense of where you are in the journey, right? Madan says intermediate. Srinath says experience. Kamal says beginner. Thanks. Great. So keep it coming. We'll talk about that in a little more aspects. Now, I want to give everybody the fundamentals. The first and foremost fundamental is that there are a lot of best practices that exist today in our world. We had waterfall way of working, where we started with requirement gathering, design, build, test, deploy, which was very sequential in manner. In fact, when I started career in 2001, it was more towards software development using waterfall way of working. Now, in 2001, we started off with Agile, right? Iterative improvements, minimum viable products, and the way that we are trying to look at it. And then we had also DevOps. Now, Agile focuses on what we call as velocity, the number of user stories that you can release in a sprint. Now, Agile is a set of principles and values. It's not a framework. It's not a best practice. It's just predominantly just giving you a set of principles and values. The part of that comes to most of the time when you're just releasing features, it comes to a point where operation struggles. Sometimes they say, hey, my system is unstable. Can you please stop your deployments? And the development team says that, good luck. All we care about is releasing new sprint releases, right? Minimum viable products. So that's where Agile was not having an approach of stability. And also in Agile world, typically you have your developers, testers, QAs, product managers, but don't have operations team involved, right? So you don't know the non-functional requirements aspect of it. So what has happened is in DevOps, which was more of 2009, the word was coined called DevOps. We try to balance between velocity and stability. So at one end, we are not just releasing features at every 2 to 4 weeks time, depending on your sprint frequency, but we're also ensuring the system is stable enough, right? We don't want to get something broken. So DevOps is not just about developer and ops. It's about anybody in the value chain from design, build, test, deploy. So your Scrum Master, your QA, your product owner, they're all called dev. And anybody who gets involved post-deployment is called ops. So your L1, L2, L3 support, administrators, database engineers, suppliers, vendors, security people, they're all called ops, right? So the primary objective of DevOps was to balance between velocity and stability. Now the big part comes in. Okay, I'm releasing features, it's stable, then why do you need SRE? Now, site reliability engineering focuses on two key elements called reliability and resilience. And when we talk about reliability and resilience, it's a very important aspect where we say, if I talk about reliability and resilience, the ability for a system or an application to perform its desired function without undergoing failure. So it's a very important part. I'm just muting people. Just make sure that we don't, we will give some time to open up, but I'm just keeping it to mute. So reliability means the ability for a system or an application to perform its desired function without undergoing failure. Now that's very important, which means if I'm driving a Mercedes-Benz, it's got great features, but all I care about is when I'm driving the car, I should be driving the car in a manner that it doesn't break off. If I have a breakdown in the part, then it doesn't work. So in service management, we have fit for purpose and fit for use. So it's just not the features that we are releasing, but we are also looking at the non-functional requirements, availability, capacity, continuity, and all of those stuff. So reliability is one part, but in spite of planning so much, in spite of all your monitoring, something will break into production. So if something breaks into production, the ability to revamp or get it back is where the real crux happens. So which is more of bouncing back, which I call as resilience, ability to bounce back if something goes down. So site reliability engineering focuses on just on reliability, not only on reliability, but also on resilience. So why is it important? Today, our customers are increasingly ruthless when it comes to downtime. They don't want to have a single minute of downtime, right? You saw WhatsApp being done, Facebook being done. The social media trolling happens automatically. So the whole important is people don't want to have any minute of downtime. They also don't want to have customer experience being a problem, like latency issues, right? This happened when the World Cup was hosted in World Cup football was hosted in Qatar. Reliance Jio came up with the screening rights, but the latency issues were a big problem and they had to wipe it out. So today, be it Netflix, Amazon Prime, everywhere, the attention of the customer is very, very little. So if you don't really do a good job of delivering a world-class experience, people are not going to stick with that. So be it a product-based company or a service-based company, your reliability and resilience are a very important part. So the question is, where does the SRE get involved? So if you look at the graphic here, the site reliability engineers should get involved from the left to right from the design, build, test, and deploy. Now that means if I want to look at reliability, it should not be an afterthought. It should not be after it goes into production, you start thinking about how is it happening. it doesn't help. What is important is, can I give the input of reliability requirements during the design phase itself? What is your definition of done? And then you start looking at build, which we talk about a concept called error budgets, which is an opportunity to experiment, because generally we don't do experimentation, and then release it to a small set of users, and then start obviously doing monitoring and support. So at every phase of the life cycle, if you start building those elements, overall, it will get a lot more importance in how we can make this successful, right? So it's a very important aspect to consider SRE to be throughout the value chain, and it gives you a lot more help and support in becoming better in what you do, and not as an afterthought. Because every time something breaks into production, it feeds back to the development team to fix it. That's a lot of rework, and it impacts customer experience. Now, the other part that is very important, why site reliability engineering is getting a lot more importance, is we are not going just with SLAs. Service level agreements is hygiene factor, right? Whatever be the contractual obligations you're meeting, it is okay. Now we are talking about SLOs, service level objectives, which is more over and above your SLA. So for example, if your priority one incident is for 4 hours, what you would do is you push yourself to do it in 3 hours, right? So what it means is that it's okay that you are meeting your contractual obligations, but doesn't mean you need to stick with that. You can do it faster, because that whole experience is so important for customer delight, right? So what is site reliability engineering according to the Google book? So if we know, Google found out SRE in 2003. Very interestingly, at 2024, we are talking about SRE. Over the years, because of the advancement with cloud, right, with the advancement in DevOps, ability to handle sophistication of tools, now reliability becomes extremely important, right? Be it in my mobile devices, in my laptops, in my notebooks, I should be able to maintain that with utmost precision and without any delays, right? So according to Site Reliability Engineering book, SREs are people who spend 50%. The goal is to create ultra scalable and highly reliable distributed software systems. When you say highly reliable distributed software systems, today, every company that I work as consulting, coaching, I see this whole value chain where you have third-party systems, internal groups. You also have open source tools, proprietary tools, all embedded in the pipeline. So the ability to manage distributed environment is even more complex, right? So if every of your components are not 100% reliable, the overall reliability also falls down, right? So at every layer, like the network layer, the CDN layer, every layer, you should look at what is your level of reliability. And that gives you an idea about how much we are doing it, right? So only 50% should be focused on ops related work. 50% should be looked at improvements. Now, I asked this question to a lot of IT service management, IT operations people, and they struggle because they are day in and day out firefighting, tickets, incidents, problems, resolutions, right? Now, you cannot do that. So there's a lot of toil that exists. I was there in another workshop with NatWest had actually invited me a couple of days back when I was in Singapore, where they wanted to have a specific workshop only on toil reduction. They said that we spending way too much time within our groups, where the toil is very important, not just from an operation, but across the value chain, right? Your technical debt, when you're talking about software development, is also toil. If I'm waiting for an environment to be ready, it's also toil. So there's a lot of merit to reduce unplanned wastes and improvise the overall scheme of things beyond monitoring and alerting, right? So I've given a little bit of a context, because a lot of people might have been, and can you also put on the chat window, are you from the ops background? Are you from an application development background? Are you from an infrastructure background? If you can put that on the chat, that will also help us to see how we are. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, actually, I'm interrupting. I have one question actually.
Sure.
Regarding SRE, right? So,
Mhm.
can you give one real example? I mean, you are, let's say, you are from operation team or you are from development team. Where
Correct.
exactly SRE coming into picture, and what the task is coming to SRE people, what the task is going to development people? Can you give one
Sure.
real example?
Sure.
That's why I mean, concept will be very much clear. I mean, where we are standing.
Sure. So that's a good question, Anup. Now, one of the things that we need to really understand from a use case perspective, and this is something. So today we have development team, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Development team is releasing new features, functionality, and deploying it to production. That's their role of the developer team. They have a CI/CD pipeline. They are releasing features. Then there is an operations team on the right-hand side, which is after called production support, right? L1, L2, L3, your service desk, incident management problem, that's a team, right? What do? If there are issues, they fix it or they do troubleshooting. So what happens is there is an interim layer which we call as early lifecycle support, which means by the time you deploy the code into production, there is a feedback that's coming in, and then they start taking action around it, right?
Yeah.
So now, if I look at this whole chain, your developers, your testers, QA, deployed into production, and operations team is doing. This is how traditionally we are doing about it. Now, the problem is every time there is a issue reported in production, what's the first thing? You raise a ticket, you say, this is not my ticket, you hand it over to the other team, and they say it is not my ticket. So this all drama starts to happen, right? A major incident, a bridge call, everybody jumps into the bridge call and find out, oh, this is not my problem. Now, the problem is we are trying to do only troubleshooting and break fixes. Now, what SRE says is that instead of doing troubleshooting and break fixes, let's look at the problem with a software engineering mindset. That means, can we do something about it so that it does not reoccur? Because today what's happening is there is about 60 to 70% are repeat incidents. Now, with 60 to 70% are repeat incidents, the customer says, what are you doing? You're just fixing issues. It is not adding value. Keeping the lights on is not adding value. So what they're saying is that, can you make a mechanism to reduce the amount of incoming incidents to me and prevent it from happening? So the real world of SRE is going from reactive, which was incident management, to proactive, which is problem analysis, as well as event management, to predictive. I should be able to predict when it goes wrong and should be able to do auto remediation. That is the world of SRE it's building up. Now, it's too early. It's very difficult to do that if you don't even start from the left to the right. So does it make sense in terms of the way that you will look at the chain? So everybody is saying, I did my work right, someone else goofed it up. The customer doesn't care.
Suresh, quick,
Go ahead,
quick
please.
comment from my side.
Go ahead.
How do you actually, because I get that it all makes sense, right? It makes total sense. And I mean, I think we had numerous discussions around this already, right?
Right.
But how do you with that mindset introduce a proactive layer
Correct.
into that and embedding? Because that for me is, the theoretical part. We know we have to do it, but how do you actually practically land something like that? Is always the question mark, because it's not an easy thing, right? It touches with business
Correct.
users plus the technical team. So how do you actually come up with something tangible that can actually be utilized to give you that outcome that you want?
No, absolutely. I think that's a spot on question, Ziam. That's a very important question that people struggle. So for the culture change and the mindset change, I wanted to give that example, right? And we did talk about that in a previous part. The sense of shared ownership is a very important part of it. Today, we are trying to measure developers by number of defects per lines of code or user stories released on a sprint, whereas the operations teams are response time and resolution time. The fundamental problem that we have to address is there a kind of a shared ownership in terms of, let's say, user experience or service level objectives as a common denominator that cuts across the value chain? So until we are making people accountable from a measurement standpoint, this is not going to happen, because everybody is going to talk about what is in for me. Why do I need to care? So at a larger level, many of the organizations that we are consulting and coaching, we are saying that, hey, our end state is about that experience. Either you call it as a net promoter score or a particular experience level agreement, whatever we have in terms of sentiment analysis and other stuff, we say if the customer is not happy for various reasons, we all are equally kind of responsible for it. So a couple of things would need. One is incentivizing people as they go through it from a metric standpoint, so that they're not just focused on their scope of work, but the end deliverable or outcome that they can achieve on that. So this would require a level of enablement, looking at metrics that are shared across the teams. And the third important part is cross-skilling. Today, what's happening is, and you might know this better, we still are not leveraging each other's expertise within that, let's say, squads or pods or chapters. Because what is happening is everybody is just doing what they can do, but that cross-pollination of best practices, lessons learned is not happening. So once we get to that mode, then we will have a far more self-organizing team. So that teams will know DevOps, SRE, Agile, everything together. And the enablement and cross skilling is also going to be a critical part. So the three things I would say, Sayam, one is the cross functional skills that you're going to build, shared metrics, measurement in the way to do it, and also the enablement that, because the dev doesn't understand the ops side of things, and the ops don't spend time on dev. So it's like a two poles apart. So bringing them to understand the philosophy, the principles and practices is also going to be a part of it and requires organizational change management. So it's a marathon, but eventually over a period of time with the leadership support, you must happen. Not sure whether it did answer your question.
No, I think that makes total sense. And I think it again comes down to that definition of done. We spoke about that some time ago. It's having that exit criteria, which has been agreed with the business, so that you can also track the utilization of the applications, whatever that's embedded within a baseline, right? To say, okay, we've achieved X, and now we are comfortable with what we've deployed.
Correct.
I think that's a component I don't think we haven't cracked it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question to kind of think through. And just moving up on that particular zone. So we need to know, what is your current IT operation model? Well, how are you working? Is it L1, L2, L3 support? Are you looking at response resolution? Because the whole world is changing from reactive to proactive to predictive. And that changes means it needs to change in process, in terms in skills, in terms of tools and automation. Because today, I don't want to do the same issue fixes again and again. How can I get it better? And how can we make it much more faster? That's going to be important. And very important when you talk about site reliability engineering is, how does reliability get built? You can have a products, because most of the organizations are moving from a project-based approach to a product-based approach. So if I'm going from a project-based approach to a product-based approach, there are certain elements that I need to target to move up the value chain. Number one, first is the monitoring part. And this is very interesting slide. This comes with Mike Dickerson's site reliability engineering hierarchy. I find this very, very important for everybody to understand in the overall product lifecycle. At the basement is monitoring, which is basically what your operations team or production support team is doing in terms of threshold, CPU, memory utilization, all of those parameters. And then the next layer is incident response. So when a ticket gets raised, either through the configuration management, a ticket raised in ServiceNow or any of the ITSM tool that you have, you need to respond, right? And then you do trend analysis of repeated issues through root cause analysis. We do blameless postmortem. You know the importance of blameless postmortem. Now, all these three sections come from the operation side of things. And as we start to move up the value chain, you see there is testing. Are you doing stress testing, regression testing, integration testing, static application security testing, right? A lot of the companies are moving towards a DevSecOps model. So I really want to know, are you doing SOX compliance? Are you doing security, static application security testing, dynamic application security testing, integration testing, right? And then capacity. If I have X number of users that I can manage, can I handle 1 million users tomorrow? It's just not about Black Friday.
Hey, Suresh, sorry to cut you in middle. Does chaos also come in that testing phase?
Yeah, so that's a great question. Now, chaos engineering is a prerogative of looking at how much is your definition of reliability. A company that is focused on reliability as a first-class citizen will do chaos engineering. And it is also important to understand that we work with a lot of banks across the globe. there was a need felt was, oh, we have strict compliance and regulatory compliance that chaos engineering might not be applicable. In fact, today, 45% of chaos engineering companies are all highly regulated environment. So it is definitely part of anti-fragility testing, chaos engineering. I didn't talk about that because we are not even getting there. There is 45% of the companies that are doing it, but that's a very important part. But that doesn't, it's a tricky question in the sense that, does it fall under this level of testing, or as it comes under a part of the operations radar? That's up to you how you structure it. Because I'm talking about testing from a continuous integration standpoint of how they work through it, some level of test cases based on CI/CD pipelines. They don't, ideally, testing should include everything, right? Security testing, anti-fragility testing. But I don't see that in most companies part of the development team. It comes as part of the fag end, as part of performance engineering team. So there is a performance engineering group that is focused on regression testing, stress testing, and then chaos engineering, if that makes sense. And then we move up the value chain. So capacity planning, then you start looking at your software development and product aspects. So in order for this to move into that zone, you still need the support of IT operations, IT support, infrastructure management, as well as software development. That's why you cannot do SRE without both of them having a good handshake. It is very primitive for us to think about how we can apply this meaningfully on that. So I'll take a pause. If you have any questions on this one so far, what we have discussed.
Yeah, Suresh, a few questions actually. Then one SRE person will do, whatever monitoring and whatever failures are coming from the monitoring, he will do why it is failing. He will do the log read, he will do the log investigation. Then after that, he will jump to code, and whatever changes he wants to do, he can change, and everything means then what the testing and developer will do. Because generally in the bank, what happens, right? Until L2, we have the support. In L3, we are the developers, right? In the city, right? Generally, especially in the banks, I'm saying, because I have all the 11 years of experience in bank only, because this is what they have divided into support and development. Then what developers will do, then what SRE will do here.
So first of all, we will cover this more on our workshop when we do that, but I'll give you a little bit of a sense, right? So first of all, your roles and responsibilities are very important. Exactly. The site reliability engineering focus is not duplicating the work of an operations team or the development team, right? They are there doing the whole part. The primary objective of an SRE is to focus on aspects of SLIs, right? You have service level indicators. So for example, there is 4 golden signals of monitoring. Do you look at latency? Yeah. Do you look at utilization? Yeah. Do you look at error codes, right? Every time I fill a thing that says 500 error, 400 error, I don't like this, right? So that is impacting user experience. Are you getting feedback on customer experience, right? It's not about customer satisfaction. So the primary objective of an SRE is to focus on what we call as golden signals of monitoring and looking at reduction of incidents by reducing toil. So there's one element that we drive called toil reduction. So across the value chain, we're saying what are the wastages? How are manual? What are the repeatable efforts? Because see, what happens? Development team is so busy only releasing features. Yeah. Operation teams are so busy only to fix these bugs. Yeah. You don't have think tank time. If you don't have think tank time, there is no way you can do SRE. So do not look at SRE to do everything. It is not possible for him to do everything. So you have to clearly delineate SRE is a very costly resource, just for your fact, right? Yeah. If I ask your SRE to do a break fixing thing, sir, you are not using the SRE to the fullest extent. So what I would do is look at reduction in the incidents. So I will work with the operations team. The operations teams are the doers. SRE team will ask the right questions. Hey, what happens in this case? How are you dealing with reliability? What was the last time that you had a downtime? How are you going to reduce downtime? What are your strategies that you have done? How do you do BCP-DR? How do you do your chaos engineering to check scenarios to do that? So it's a very important role where you have a lot of experience around all different phases of your life cycle. And you pick the ones that will give you the most yielding effort, right? You cannot be a Superman or a Superwoman. You need to focus on things that will deliver the most value in the shortest period of time. And that's where
Suresh, what's the entry point? Sorry, I'm cutting off you. What is the entry point for the SRE?
So
in the life cycle, we like what is that handover point, or where do they,
Yeah,
where do they get
so
involved
so
in?
let's like look at the one that I was just sharing this in a little bit before. So if you look at the previous slide that I talked about, there is an input that is coming around from all this part. If you look at this whole thing, the SRE is getting involved. The most important phase that you get involved is the design phase, because that's where you start feeding in inputs in terms of what reliability means, your scalability means, right? Because typically, Siam, in terms of enterprise architects, in terms of looking at solutioning, we need to know how does reliability work, right? So that inputs has to come from an SRE. So they need to get involved from the design stage itself. And the build stage, they are trying to look at, are we building it in the right component? So it could be a prototype, it could be a pilot that we are building it. Are we taking everything to leave no stone unturned? And then they start actually on the ground measuring how much downtime do I have? How much have been downtime? How much downtime have been attributed to a bug in the code? So in my opinion, the first point of entry would be the design phase, where you are actually designing the whole solution itself, or a product or for a service. Because if I don't take that at that level from a shift left perspective, your ability to move up in the value chain is going to be very limited. So that's how they will start getting involved in the overall design of what reliability means. And it comes with a cost, right? Sometimes there are legacy systems which you have to live with it. Sometimes it's modernized applications. But I would start there. That's where the real value starts to come, and then they oversee this in junctures and try to ask us questions. What can we do better to prevent such kind of incidents from happening in this? So if I'm able to reduce toil, if I'm able to reduce incoming incidents, and if I'm able to free up time, then SRE's role is done. All I want to make is I want to build systems which are autonomous enough so that I don't spend time on non-valid activities. So that's how I look at SRE's interventions in the value chain.
Hey Suresh, sorry to cut you out. I just wanted to know, like, where is SRE heading right now? What is the scope of SRE, where it is actually heading, and how management is looking at SRE right now? Because many companies are confused between SRE, DevOps, maybe other roles as well, AI ops or something similar. So
That's a good
yeah.
question, Swapnil. So you're jumping the gun, but I'll still answer that. Now, one of the things is the role of site reliability engineering is getting almost critical. Today, as we speak, I have 8,000 jobs in India just for SRE, right? And people are pounding on us to say, can you provide resources? We said, we are not a manpower company. We don't do position resource, but that's a demand. Now, the question is, SRE is requiring the new set of skills as SRE that we go in has to move towards predicting things and preventing things. So which means the focus is on observability and AOps. So observability, because I want to know what are the things that might happen which has not happened before, right? Because it's not known knowns. It's not known unknowns. It's about unknown unknowns. So today, with all the data that you've collected in terms of issue resolution, break fixes, I should be able to get a sense of what else could go wrong and predict it and prevent it from happening. So that's where the whole um, uh, push towards SRE is happening around. The SRE is looking at far ahead of the term in terms of what else would go wrong. And if it goes wrong, how will you remediate it? You cannot do this without having basic things in Agile, DevOps in place, SRE
Correct.
in place, going into observability, moving from monitoring to observability, from observability, looking at AOps, looking at use cases. There's a lot of work, right? So that's why we think that this whole chain has to be addressed. And only when you go from left to right slowly and gets a level of maturity, get feedback, you will be able to improvise this and move forward in that particular direction, right?
And
So hope
and
that answers your question.
and
Suresh,
why are companies right now confused with SRE principles and DevOps and
The first and foremost thing, Swapnil, we have trained about 10,000 people overall in the last 10 years. There is a fundamental disconnect from what people read. People read documents and they think this is what DevOps is. This is what SRE is. They don't have practical experience in understanding DevOps. And we have seen this time and again that you need to have a practitioner who could teach you what is DevOps or SRE. It's a complete lack of knowledge, lack of paying attention to the details, and everybody wants to know that they know DevOps. If you ask DevOps, people think it's CI/CD pipeline. CI/CD pipeline is not DevOps, first of all. So the problem, Swapnil, that we have is people have very little understanding about it, and then they think DevOps is. So I'm not going to go there and confront this one. From my experience, I think you should listen from the person who's actually done that. You can have so much of people, you can have it in Google and other courses, but it will not help it. So that's a part. Let's go to Shiva's question. What skill set required for SRE? Oh, that's a great question, right? If I need to build about SRE skill set, there's a few things that you need to do it. First is you need to have a good, strong understanding about DevOps. You cannot do site reliability engineering without understanding DevOps. If someone says me, we will do SRE separately, DevOps, I think we have not understood what is this part, right? So your CI/CD pipeline, your deployment frequency, if you look at DORA metrics for that example, how frequently are you deploying? How reliable it is that? So you need to have a good knowledge about DevOps, which means also about with tool sets, your primary develop of tool sets. This could include tools like understanding about Kubernetes, Terraforms, looking at the aspect of, if you're looking at through Jenkins to do, or for example, Azure DevOps, right? If you're looking at everything moving to an Azure DevOps model, you should be really clear about how the model works, right? And it is context specific based on what your organization follows, just follow that. So good, solid understanding about DevOps is important. Then service management is super important, because if you don't understand IT service management, ITIL, infrastructure management, you're not going to do a good job, right? So you need to know about monitoring, you need to know about observability, but we also need to look at areas where you have product knowledge. If it could be domain-specific knowledge, if you're part of investment banking, core banking, retail banking, you need to know the productized knowledge. The domain expertise is very important. And then finally, I would say AI ops, right? How is artificial intelligence going to help you in the ops kind of a thing, right? From predictive. So I think by and large, Agile, DevOps, IT service management, tool set, these are some of the things which we need. And more importantly, experience in some of those divisions. So I started my career in software developer, technical consultant. Then I became a solution architect. Then I moved into IT serviceman, IT operations, manage operations. Then I'm looking at SRE. So I've gone through all these sections. So we are able to relate it better, then you will probably have a better outcome from a SRE standpoint. First of all, SRE, you cannot master it in 2 days with a workshop. A lot of people think that I undergo a training with TaUB Solutions, will become an SRE. I wish I could tell you that I will give you a magic wand and you will become an SRE. You will not. A very important part is to understand how these components interact with each other. A lot of people, and Swapnil asked this right question, because you don't know the connections between SRE, DevOps, Agile, ITSM, sab hawa mein chal raha hai. Everything just goes over the head. The whole way of understanding is you have to make sure that you are very good in the fundamentals. If your fundamentals are not clear, you cannot actually work through. So my philosophy is you need to understand the SRE philosophy, the principles, practices, and engineering. You know what people do? They just jump into engineering and say, how does SRE happen? It doesn't work. If you don't understand the principles, practices, and philosophy, engineering becomes a very difficult part, right? I hope this gives you a part. So I'm just conscious of the time. I'm going to kind of, we will have questions, but I'm going to go a little bit further into this if thing. And thanks, keep your questions coming around, right? So let's talk about DevOps versus SRE. Now, DevOps and SRE is very confusing because people don't understand what DevOps is. DevOps means you're able to release features and it's also stable. So whatever features you're releasing, it should not have bugs, correct? First time right, I'm able to deliver it. But in reality, what happens? I'm busy releasing features. And suddenly I cannot just pull it back and say I'm done. So that's where the DevOps starts to work. Now, a lot of organizations are in silos. I did the work. I don't care about what happens. How many of them, they ship the code and something breaks, it doesn't work. I was actually having, I was managing a coaching of a DevOps team. We call a concept of shared pain and shared gain. Sometimes the operations team work 24/7. Development team works 9/5. So what we did was we woke up the developer at 3 o'clock in the morning. When we woke up the developer at 3 o'clock in the morning, we realized that there was zero defect in the code which was released. So we say shared pain and shared gain, because people have to make sure that it starts from the beginning of the life cycle. Are we doing properly? Are we ensuring refactoring happens? So if you are in the agile ways of working, one of the ways that we talked about during PI planning is, do you do refactoring? Are you able to reduce the, are you able to optimize your code? So all of those are important. Accept failure as normal. This is very easy said and done. People do, the moment you talk about failure, people say that fear of failure happens. So one of the concepts in SRE is error budgets, where we allow people to experiment enough and then see how things work. Implement gradual changes. The big bang changes are done and dusted. Today, we are doing micro releases. Today, you don't need to have downtime. Most of the customers are asking, why do you need to have downtime? If everything is in microservices, micro releases, I don't really need to have that. So that's one of the reasons a very important transformation is the moving towards a cloud native approach. So if I don't move to a cloud native approach, the ability to practice this becomes a little bit difficult in how we can make this work, right? And the next one is about tools and automation. So whatever tools you're using, you should cut across the value chain, right? All the different things. So typically we have a COE, Center of Excellence, which brings up certain popular tools that they need to apply and implement. And that will help us to move in that direction faster and efficient to do that. Measure everything. Measure everything means just not monitoring, but also observability, right? So that's the part of it. So if you look at the dev and SRE, because I want to bring in a perspective here. The dev teams owns the application code. They do the unit testing. They also own some level of runbooks, metrics, and all that definitions. So you look at from that particular cycle. SRE teams will find out use cases. I told you about SLOs, right? We have to move from SLAs to SLOs, which is service level objectives, which is over and above your SLAs. They're looking at escalation handling, break fixes. But then there is a new term that is happening today called platform engineering. How many of you heard this word called platform engineering, right? A platform engineering is the new ways of working. So today, there are some people called platform SREs. There are some people called platform engineering. So what does that mean? First, let's understand what is platform engineering, because this is a trend that we need to understand. One of the trends that you will start observing, this is one example that I can think about. This is happening in Infosys. I have a lot of friends who I talk as SREs, and they say in Infosys, they have 190,000 developers. Am I clear? 190,000 developers every day do some work. Now, the question is, if every person as a developer needs to have time to provision the environment, do some testing, do some secret management, it's going to take a way too much time. So what they've done is they've developed a platform where each and every one can place a request. Once they place a request, they get feedback, and then it becomes like a service request. Oh, you need this environment to be provisioned, you will get it in X amount of hours. If you have the secret management, we'll do that. So it becomes a buffet of service. So the entire aspect, right from your code check-in to environment readiness, providing you with anti-fragility options, tools, everything is like an as a service. You just have to request and it will provision everything. This is phenomenal, because I think more and more people are in silos handling it. It is going to be very difficult. The best way is to build in a buffet of services, and you build this team together. So you will have your cloud support, infrastructure support team, operations team. They're all part of the one squad or pod to sit along, and then they do any issues that they come together. So you don't need to split it with one team. They take the ticket, then assign it to another team. That's so much of toil. It goes over and over again. The way I would do it is I'll stop and I'll say, this is what I do. I will just spread this work between the teams, and we should be able to do it better. So every organization that I'm working with are moving into platform engineering. You cannot go into platform engineering without understanding both DevOps and SRE. Am I making sense? So that's how the whole chain will start working together in end-to-end platform. And the beauty of this platform engineering is there is a lot of cross-skilling happening. Cross-functional teams are built up. So you don't need to work on one job. You can do multiple jobs. In fact, when I was part of HP, in 8 years, I changed 6 different roles. So the question is, can you ongoingly change your profile with your experience and expertise to do that? And this is a very great opportunity. So you might be as a full stack developer to start with. And then with their experience, you can also move to an SRE. So similarly, you can be in service management background. Then you probably want to look at more into the chaos engineering aspect of reliability. So multiple streams are possible based on your area of experience, expertise, and what do you fall under to move this forward, right? So
Hey, Suresh, sorry to cut you. Just a question around that you just discussed right now. Why is SRE segregated to a platform SRE and a business SRE? Like I've seen folks who are only doing incident management and monitoring stuff, right? Creating RCA documentations and incident reports.
Mhm.
And while some of the other guys who are doing much into engineering. So why the segregation, and what is the best side you should be in? What is a good side you should be in?
So a couple of things. First is for importance. Everybody loves the word called platform engineering. So everybody wants to do platform engineering. So they group some people and say platform engineering. So that's the first problem that we have. Okay. The second part of this, first you have to understand the why of platform engineering. Why do we have platform engineering at the first place? So you reduce toil, reduce rework, reduce turnaround time. That's the plan. First, you have to understand what is your capability of the team. So if your incident management and problem management team are doing certain work, is it cutting across the value chain? Or is it in separately done? That's the first part. Because if it's not integrated with my value stream, in ITIL 4, we talk about value chains and value streams. If you don't integrate it with my value stream, then it doesn't make any sense to be a part of platform engineering, right? So you first have to look at understanding value streams and value chains. For example, one way I would look at Swapnil is detect to correct. What do you mean by detect to correct? Detect to correct value stream means that from the time I detect an incident, through your configuration management tools with monitoring, I'll raise an incident. And from that incident, I will go into problem ticket with repeat incidents, known errors, change request, and close it. Make sense? So if I look at that as an entire value chain, then it makes sense to come to platform engineering because there is an input of moving from alert, warning, incident to a problem, to a known error, to a change. And if it's not done through that cycle, then platform engineering doesn't make any sense. So if you don't really look at this in holistic term, we are just force fitting these groups into that. And that's where most of the people get it wrong. So it's not just about incident management as a practice. It's not about problem management as a practice. That's where we have failed miserably. It is about end-to-end, detect to correct. From the time something is phishing, that I have a latency issue, till the time I fix it or upgrade my system, that end-to-end is what should come as part of your practice. So every time I have some detection, sudden spikes that happens during my monitoring, it should automatically trigger all this stuff. And that will be the cycle that I will be able to trace. What event triggered this incident, and this incident related to a known error, break fixes, change management, all of those stuff will have to be interrelated. Then you are having a better insight of it. Now, today, the biggest challenge is it's very complex. So many moving parts, and understanding what's going under the current is very, very difficult. So again, tools will only do so much, right? There is a level of gray area, what I call as blind spots that still exist. And it is over a period of time that you will get closer to get better. So your continuous learning, updation, understanding the environment, understanding user behavior, all play a pivotal role to actually make platform engineering really work. Yeah. Right. So let's go into SLOs. So this is my favorite slide. You know the watermelon syndrome, right? The watermelon looks green outside. All your SLAs look green outside. The moment I open the watermelon, it's bleeding red. Customer is simply bleeding. You know why? We measure IT-centric metrics. All these IT-centric metrics of response time, resolution time. Boss, do you even know what's happening? Let's take an example. I call up the service desk saying that my Microsoft Outlook is not working. What do? You raise me a ticket and say, ticket number, IM, you give me a number. And you say, I will solve it within 3 hours, 4 hours, 8 hours, whatever. Do you even care from the time the ticket was raised until the time it got resolved? Do you even care about that? No, that is not part of our SLAs. Na? Our SLA is response time, resolution time. Resolution means open to work in progress. Resolved means open to resolve. I am done. Boss, have you ever thought about the transaction from the time the issue was raised to then? This is what we call as experience level agreement. We need to start thinking about the user experience. I was actually talking to one of the Benz car owner. I said, what happens to Benz car? And he was in a high segment part of it. He says that, Suresh, every time I have a Benz car having a breakdown in some part in Singapore, I get a replacement car. And then they take up the car and then they resolve it and come back. For me, that makes it towards an experience level agreement. Of course, there is a cost associated with it. There's a premium associated with it. But you know what? They are looking at how is the person going to do their work in the interim where you fix the issue, right? And that's a thought process I think we need to start triggering in the world of service level objectives or experience level agreement, right? So what does it simply mean? SLA is basically a contractual agreement between service provider and customer. We have been doing this for years, right? And that's the watermelon syndrome that I talked about. We need to move a little bit above. So if I am doing a P1 incident in 3 hours, can I do it in 2 hours? If I'm doing availability at 97%, can I do it in 98%? And how will you do that? Now, this is an internal target. Now, today, a lot of customers, when it comes to renewal of contracts, do not get it renewed. How many of you can relate with this? The renewal of contracts is a big pain area for service providers because someone is either playing the cost of money to do it. I don't think money is an arbitrator. It's about what value can you give. So most of the organizations are moving into an SLO journey because that's where you will start to have a skin in the game. If we just talk about doing this provider, if X provider does, Y also will do that. What is the whole differentiator? Why would they want to give or renew the business with you? So that's an area that we need to start thinking about to do it, for which you need to measure SLIs. So it could be the utilization, the latency that we talk about, saturation, error codes, all of those stuff are very important to manage. So one key difference people struggle is monitoring and observability. Now, monitoring will tell you thresholds, right? If you have 95% utilization, my CPU memory, you trigger a ticket and get it work done. That's more of monitoring. So it is a symptoms and it tells you what's broken. And it is done all the time. Very passive. Why passive? Only when it goes beyond a threshold, you act on it. Otherwise, you will not act on it. And the operations team, the operations that we are talking about, is just passively looking at it. Oh, I will take an action if something goes wrong. Now, this is very reactive, correct? Now, what happens is when there is a major incident, something breaks down, we need to take some action. And that is the time we do debugging, we do profiling. If you have microservices, we do distributed tracing. There, we talk about MELT, metrics, events, logs, and traces. Now, we only do it when we couldn't find the answer. So this is, again, very reactive. On the fly, who does that? Development team. Because it's at a code level that they need to get inside. You cannot do observability without doing monitoring. So monitoring is the prerequisite. Remember the site reliability hierarchy of Mike Dickerson? It starts with monitoring. But it has to go beyond monitoring. Because monitoring is just telling you something is broken. The true causes, because like problem management, there could be one too many reasons. Something failed. And you should be able to understand how things work. And that's where observability becomes a lot more important. How many of you here actually do observability beyond monitoring? Are you actually doing observability or just doing monitoring? Because some people think that observability is an improved version of monitoring. No, it is not.
Yeah, we are doing that. We have synthetic monitoring, and that really helps. So yeah, like
So there's
Splunk.
Sorry, go ahead.
So we are using Splunk, which basically we have some API tests, some uptime tests, and some RUM tests. Which is mimicking a user, and before an issue occurs, it helps us. So yeah.
So it's a good start, but there's so much which is still broken. There's a lot more things that you will unravel as you go through it, because even the tools, sophisticated, cannot pick up the things in the way that it operates because there are too many different transactions that are happening around the sign. And that's where it becomes very, very interesting to go beyond just the part. There is a whole movement towards what we call as open telemetry that helps to create whether you are using your App Dynamics, Dynatrace, whatever tools you're using, how can you bring in that level of aggregation and see how we can move that in that direction, right? So let's talk about the industry trends. This was an SRE report of 2023. They looked at how many organizations are doing SRE at an organization level, right? 19% are doing it at an organization level, 55% at product or service level, and 23% are piloted. This was a report from 2023 because I get closer access to that particular part. And this is because if you start asking, I told about the downtime, right? They ask you what hurts the most. I talk with a lot of CIOs globally, and I ask them what keeps them awake in the night. They say, Suresh, all unplanned outages keeps me awake. And this is because you did not do a good job of making sure that the system is up and running 24/7, 365 days. Very difficult, right? A lot of times we do only the symptom. We don't do the causes. So a very important part is to measure your downtime. This is a state of observability report of 2023 that says on an average, an hour of downtime is $150,000. We were working with one of the companies in Canada, and we said that the CIO said, Suresh, I want to hire SRE, but I don't know I have a use case. I asked him, what is the cost of downtime? He said about $300,000. So $300,000, I can get 2 SREs. And if I get two SREs and if you can prevent downtime, will it be okay? Actually, we got that approved as from a budget perspective. So the question is, why SRE is getting popular is people are butchered if any downtime happens. You remember in a major incident happens, what is the customer asking you? What is the likelihood of this not occurring again? What you'll say? To the best of our knowledge, we hope that this issue will not happen again. Is that what you say? Or you say that confidently, this major incident that happened will not happen again? Can you do that with all full confidence? You cannot know because there's so many things that will go wrong, which is not under our control itself. So a very important aspect is this is driving people's behavior. And why are people adopting this SRE? 68% say we want to reduce the risk of service failure. How important is that? Or unplanned downtime. You cannot afford to have this part. And 65% saying that we need to have reliable services because it will give you confidence and trust among customers, improved satisfaction, and so on and so forth. What are some of the challenges? Very interesting. And this is why I want to do this session. 38% of people say lack of staff with necessary skill sets is the biggest challenge facing an SRE. 38%. And as we do the training and coaching and advisory services for things globally, we think that there is so much people that we have to impact. And that's why we are doing this webinar, because I want you to create an interest that it's not easy. There's a lot of work and people don't find talent. And some of you would be the perfect fit for organizations if you have the desired skill set. But how are you positioning yourself as to be competent in SRE? How are you leveraging your experience with practical knowledge? And I'll talk a little bit about how TaUB Solutions helps you. But this is all important. SRE, they're asked this question, how has SRE helped you in your career? What effects did the shift of SRE role have? They said 51% said I expanded my skills and capabilities by becoming an SRE. This answers your question why you should care about SRE, why you should train yourself, why you should become competent in that. It is going to be a game changer for a lot of people. And over the last 4 years, I've coached, trained 2,500 to 3,000 people. I see that this is increasingly evident. And if you have known me, if you have talked with me anytime, and if you follow me on LinkedIn, I keep on posting about SRE because that's keeping me busy throughout. And what it means is that they need real practitioners who can solve the problem. I can go through courses, training, and buy a book of SRE and do that. You can still not make it happen because it's context specific. And that's why learning from a practitioner is super important. Okay. And this is 2024 report. Top 21 jobs, site reliability engineering. And it is just evident that how much site reliability engineering is in demand. They're saying you need to know about Kubernetes, AWS, Terraforms. Look at the price, salary range, $94,000 to $189,000. Just phenomenal. And top roles transition from, you can either be a DevOps consultant, system engineer, cloud engineer. How are we making this happen? They interviewed me, asking me why SRE is important, and this was published in the Enterprise Journal. I said that over the past few years, site reliability engineering teams have reduced significant amount of toil by reducing technical debt, improving customer experience, and that is super important. I get invited to speak. In fact, I'm going to be in ITSM of Australia next week, speaking about why SRE is going to deliver an outstanding customer experience. And this is going to be in Melbourne. I wish, Srinath, it was in Sydney. I could have met you or given an excuse. But the point is, there's a lot of demand of people asking us to come and speak there. So focus on reliability and resilience. We talked a lot about that. This is a good life cycle. I just want to bring it to perspective, right? So the product team is looking at backlog, new features. They're looking at engineering effort. And then you do triaging, right? If there is an issue happening around, you do a triaging about blameless postmortem. So from the service desk, you do this one. You do also the monitoring observability. So this end-to-end has to be a cycle. From the time you get a ticket to this one, everything has to be a part of value stream and value chains. And then see how reliability and resilience still works for you. So I'm going to skip the leveraging part of the thing. I'm going to go into the career opportunities and why TaUB Solutions can help you on this journey. And then we'll take some questions. So a very important part is to understand this element. So why TaUB Solutions? So as I said, we do the ATC model, assess, train, and consult. I told you there's a lot of benefits why SRE is being adopted in organizations, embracing risk, eliminating toil, simplifying things, automating, improving customer experience, right? So what we do a complete roadmap for organizations when they go into the journey. And this is for corporates that we work, right from training and assessment to creating proof of value, to establishing SRE as a practice. It's a marathon. It doesn't happen just like that. It takes enough amount of time and preparations to do that. It's one of the examples of a customer that we are working to make that more impactful, right? So you're going to learn from people who are doing day in and day out, solving real world problems of SRE. So if you are looking at reliability as an important aspect, if you're looking at operations beyond keeping the lights on, if you want to raise the bar of operation excellence, if you want to look at experience management, then I think you should look at SRE seriously, right? So at a high level, you need to look at service availability. You need to look at reliability and resilience. This is where your chaos engineering, your anti-fragility testing, SRE by design, starting from the beginning, looking at application modernization, look at SLOs and user experience, because your customer journey map, your experience level agreement, and become more predictive. You can only do predictive when you start becoming to focus on observability, telemetry, self-healing, and auto-remediation. So these are very, very important tenets that you need to imbibe to become better in that particular version of it. So what do? We do SRE foundation training. That's happening. And I'll tell my team, Jaya, if you can put that on the chat of the upcoming sessions. We're doing SRE foundation, and we also have an SRE practitioner where we go deep dive with our list of our trainers are about 20-25 years of experience. They come with real world experience to share some industry best practices on how you can get benefited on. So these are our public batch schedule. We have one for 22nd to 23rd of August. It's a weekday batch. There is a 24 to 25 August. And the reason we have two batches is there is so much demand. Some people want to do it in a corporate batch. So we have the 22nd and 23rd batch. The 24th and 25th batch is for people who are wanting to do it on a weekend because they are busy on the weekdays. The SRE practitioner, you cannot do it because if not done thing, but if you've already done the foundation, then we do an SRE practitioner, which is from 23rd of August to 25th of August. And we also do AOPS and so on. So please do sign up for our newsletters. We will give you some info IDs so you can follow us on LinkedIn, on YouTube, and resources to take advantage of this, right? So these are some of those testimonials that we have got from people who had attended our trainings. This is on the SRE practitioner. And this is
Suresh, I already completed the foundation training. How it will be enhanced? We need to go for SRE practitioner as well. How it
yeah,
will be?
so practitioner has a lot more details on the implementation aspect. For example, this is what we cover in the depth. So the way we go into that is we talk about how to do non-abstract large-scale design, how to do actual scenarios for chaos engineering. We do a demo with Gremlin. Then we talk about SLOs by boundaries, because if you are looking at distributed environment, how do you break SLOs into boundaries? So we give you a scenario, and then we ask you to build a customer journey and then break it out. So it's a very detailed thing. You can reach out to us. We will give you all the details of the SRE practitioner curriculum where you can actually have a look at it. And it will definitely yield a lot more results, right? So happy to chat more on that. So as I said, the SRE compensation is pretty high. This is on the range in US dollars for system engineers to system administrator to SRE is phenomenal, depending on how you prove. And of course, this is more on the US side, but we also get equally great opportunities for people in this zone around, right? So I wanted to kind of look at one key elements of doing this. Some free resources as a value add. If you go to taubsolutions.com SRE or on the YouTube channel, I interview SRE practitioners who share their real world experience of how they implement SRE. And this is a great resource for you to look at it. It's also available on Spotify, on Google Podcast, and it is so valuable. I've also added a Q&A series. If you go to YouTube Jaya, if you put the TaUB Solutions YouTube channel link, they can go through it and they can look at subscribing to the episode. So I talk about 60 to 70 episodes of just about all about SRE, DevOps, DevSecOps, and stuff like that. So with that, I'll open up a Q&A. If you have any questions, I've got about last 15 minutes to take it because I want to use that. We also have, and if you have some people whom you have done that and you refer things, you get an opportunity to also have some rewards, right? Because we think that in order to impact people, we cannot just go alone. We need your support, your thinking about reaching out. If you got benefited, a lot of you had got benefited and you reached out to other people. That's how people logged in and made this impact. So very important to start seeing how we can make that really work. I will share a couple of links for you to get in touch with us. I want to launch a poll, and then we will take a question. The poll is, if you are interested to, I'm just thinking, launch the poll. Yeah, can we do direct? So SRE practitioner, Sumit, requires you to have some basic knowledge of foundation. And if you know the knowledge, if you know the fundamentals very clearly, then you can actually start thinking about SRE practitioner. We have given our email address. If you want us to give you more information and more details, we will be more than happy to give you that aspects. So it is not mandatory to do SRE practitioner, SRE foundation to practitioner, but it's recommended because a lot of terminologies are clear. And so please talk to us. One of our people can help you to see whether you are ready to do the SRE practitioner. I'll ask you some of the basic questions. If you know how to answer that, then I would say it is not about telling that you are not competent. It's just making sure you need to be at a prerequisite level before we go into the practitioner, because we go hands-on to it, right? We don't talk about basics at all. In 3 days, we cannot do basics. So I just want to be very clear about the expectations and see how we can do that. Okay, any other questions?
Suresh, who will be the trainer for that SRE foundation and SRE practitioner? I mean, you will be the trainer?
So we have a lot of, again, there's a lot of trainers that we have, depending on who's available is that, right? We do global, we do regional wise to do that, depending on what it is. As I said, our bare minimum requirements is people should have 23 years of experience minimum to teach SRE practitioner, and 20 years of experience to teach SRE foundation. And they are all hands-on people. So whoever it is be, because we do batches in the US time zone, we do batches in Europe time zone, you do batches in APJ time zone. So we don't know what trainers would be there, but all our trainers are pretty competent in how they can work through it. And if you go to our TaUB Solutions page, you look at the list of trainers who we have as part of it. So Jaya, if you can put the consultants list on the link, they can actually have a look at it. So one of them would be available to help you. Yeah. And I wanted to share one story on this. One of the person attended the SRE foundation session. I think it was done by me some time back, and he got a position as an SRE in a company. He came back to me and said, well, I've got the job, but I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to make this. So now I'm doing one-on-one coaching with those people to become a full-fledged SRE. So we just don't stop you with just the training and certification. We try to help you to build skills and capability that is addressable into the market. And that's a very important part, that nobody else does that, right? Because we think that we need to make the change in people's life. And for me personally, as I said, 10,000 people we have trained in the last 10 years. I want to impact 100,000 people before we say we are done, right? 100,000 is a large number. So the more we can reach out by word of mouth and see how we can work this through, it can do. So I'm available as Suresh GP on LinkedIn. I'm very active on that. I will also share you one more resource I think we should do is on the LinkedIn page. One of the things I think it's important for all of you to understand. I will put you my link is SRE job roles. So if you go to TaUB Solutions page, it actually has a post on what are the job posts. So Kunal, if you see the post that we did for SRE jobs last week, if you can put that link, they can actually have a look at things to manage, and they can see through it. So every week we post job opportunities that are there in the in Globe. I think one of the things I love about what Kunal is our marketing head does, that he is constantly looking out for adding more value for our teams. And it is a great way to look at opportunities for you to apply directly. You know, we don't are in a scheme of doing this for ourselves. Yeah, I think this one, I'll just explain this post. So if you go to TaUB Solutions on LinkedIn page, this is a page, this was just sent last week. You can actually have a look at this. All the different positions of SRE in RCCM, Maersk, Nexthink. So we continuously add value to people. That's a part that I showed you. And also on the YouTube channel, if you can go to YouTube channel on playlist, you will see a lot of this playlist of Q&A series, SRE practitioner series, and all of those stuff, which I think is a good way to see this through. So definitely recommend you to be a part of it. Continually ask questions to us, and if you have anything that we can help, we'll be more than happy. So last 10 minutes for Q&A, and then we'll wrap it up. And thank you so much for staying late. I thought it'll be just 1 hour, but with the interaction and conversation. One question I think Swapnil asked is around skill set required. We talked about SRE culture. So we know culture eats strategy for breakfast. So one of the ways that we talk about is gamifying part. So if you follow me on LinkedIn, I'm a big fan of gamification, where we do experiential learning. We also look at organizational change management. We not only do bottoms-up approach, but also top-down approach. So our focus is more towards building, understanding the why. Because when you talk about culture, if you don't address what is in for me, people are not going to be upbeat about SRE, or for that matter. How is it going to benefit them? Are they going to get promotions? Are they going? Is it going to make their life a lot more easier? So I think if you don't address what is in for me, then people are not going to be happy with what they are receiving. So it's a very important area or an element to start understanding how we can apply and give them. There are a lot of reservations. A lot of people have reservations. If you don't address their reservations, have an open mind, it's not going to be workable. So a lot of times I do one-on-one sessions, understand when I do assessment, because a lot of people don't want to open up in front of their managers. So I have a separate conversation, talk with them, and I get a little bit of understanding of how things work, right? So it's a very interesting and important aspect to consider, the mindset of the people, their apprehensions, what is in for them, and how you can incentivize people. How by going into SRE, it will help them in their career. So you have to be candid enough to help people understand the part. So then it'll happen. Rome is never built in a day. It takes time, but over a period of time, you should be able to achieve that goal or target. Hope that answers your questions.
Hey, thanks. I just missed a few minutes of sessions. Just wondering, like, when is this batch or proceeding further?
So this is so if you can look at the part I talked about, I'll just bring that presentation a little bit more. The dates for the thing is the public workshop. So if you go to our website, you will see that. But I'm just going to quickly show you the dates for everybody's benefit. I think this one. So if you look at the dates, these are the dates. The SRE Foundation is going to happen on 22nd and 23rd of August, which is a weekday batch. There is a 24th to 25th of August, which is a SRE Foundation in the weekend batch, which is getting fast filling now. The SRE Practitioner is going to be a 23rd to 25th August. It's 9 to 5, 3 days in Practitioner and 2 days of Foundation. We also have 24th and 25th is on AOP Foundation, because a lot of people who do it with us, they start with SRE Foundation, they do SRE Practitioner, they do Observability Foundation, they do AOP Foundation, and they have seen so much benefits just doing it with us, because you are learning from real world experience. And as I said, we are a thought leader in the space. We go into conferences and speak, but we also solve real world problems. I hope we can not only help you, but also your company. So if you're looking at a B2B engagements that you want to root up, we'd be more than happy to kind of give you a part and help you if there's any questions to reach out to us. Okay. Right. Any other questions, comments? So Sumit says, any coding skill set required, only understand. So I think, Sumit, understanding coding is important in the sense that you should have done any coding or a programming language before, right? But you don't need to be an expert in all languages, right? It could be Python today, it could be C#, it could be .NET. I mean, you cannot be an expert in all, right? But understanding the general nuances of coding helps, right? Because otherwise people cannot understand what is technical debt, what is refactoring, what is code optimization, right? So you need to really understand how this work. You not to be an expert on that, but you should have done the scenarios that you can relate it better in a real life situation. So it is helpful and recommended, but you don't get everybody with all skills, right? So that's why I think the domain knowledge is important. Understanding architecture is important. Some of the tool sets is important. And how to reduce toil and looking at customer experience is also important. So the more you can bring those elements together, you probably.
So if one person knows Docker, Kubernetes, Terraform, and Ansible, then that person can go into the DevOps and can get into the SRE role as well, right? So both the role will be open.
Absolutely, absolutely. So again, you have to define, you have to look at your job description. SRE role
Exactly.
is different for different organizations. So don't
Exactly. Yeah.
the SRE in Google is very different from SRE in Standard Chartered Bank, for example.
Exactly.
So you cannot just assume that this will what is needed. So in fact, if you go to my Q&A series, I have defined what the roles and responsibilities are. So there's a lot of free resources that I've shared. You should go there and look at it and subscribe to it because we constantly update that part. So to that question,
Because
yes.
yeah, because I see JP Morgan's responsibility is something different, Morgan Stanley's responsibility is something different.
Truly. And that's why one size doesn't fit all. And a lot of times the JD and the actual work is different. The moment you come on board, people take you for granted. This is all, they will put an asterisk and says that, and other roles as applicable. You don't know what roles you're even talking about. So it's a very little bit of a gray area in some of the cases.
Exactly, yeah.
But some organizations which we work with that, we curate also. We said, this is what is the job description based on your role. And then we help them to curate on that. But
you mentioned, right? So JP Morgan's job description, if you know any language, any Java or Python or C#, any language is okay.
Correct.
But you have to know at least one language for SRE to getting into the
exactly,
SRE.
right? And it's not possible to know all languages, yeah.
Exactly,
I don't have time to learn all the languages. So let's be very realistic.
One person can't be efficient also.
Yeah, and we are not expecting you to be a Superman or a Superwoman.
Exactly.
You have to understand and converse with everybody in the value chain. Can you do that? Can you talk language with the other person understands? That's so important. So that's how I think it'll be there. And as I said, we are here to support you in the journey. We don't want to look at this as a training, but I want you to build your career with TaUB Solutions, because only then you will probably be, we would have impacted people, right? And that's the whole reason I am spending my 1.5 hours here. Otherwise, I would not. I mean, generally, we don't do these webinars, but my team said we need to give people an understanding of what is DevOps, SRE, and what is the career progression, why we need to do that. So I hope this was useful for all of you in terms of understanding the nuances and making it more interactive. Any questions? Any other questions?
Hey Suresh, I mean, these workshops that you guys are gonna take over, like they are like a day long, right? Do you give any material or like...
Yeah. So there will be material. There will be DevOps Institute official materials. Then there will be breaks. There will be mock questions. Every exam has got like 40 questions. You need to score 60 minutes, 26 to pass. So we give you mock questions. We'll prepare you for the exam. We will give you some value-added resources, some videos. So there's a lot more that you can take away in that particular thing. And we have breaks. 2 breaks, coffee breaks, 2 breaks, as well as a lunch break. And it will not be, death by PowerPoint. It will be scenarios, and you will have people from different backgrounds. One of the reasons I love about public batches is I get people from different companies. They have their own definition of SRE. When you try to do, you'll also build a good network. We also have a WhatsApp group community where you can be a part of it. So ongoingly, you can get appraised of the new courses, new scenarios to do it. And once in a while, you get access to me if you have any. So I come specifically for the group who's are part of community group and address their questions. So you get to stand a lot by being a part of TaUB Solutions family. Right? So I'll leave it with that. Last 2 minutes. Any final one more question before we wrap it up?
Hey, is this possible for us to connect for like 5 or 10? I have some questions around, and maybe I can pitch you guys in my company as well. If
Sure. I'm happy to stay back after this webinar. We can continue that.
Maybe a one-on-one. Maybe I'll reach you on LinkedIn right now.
Sure. We can do that. Any other questions, comments, thoughts, team? I'm really thankful and grateful for you to have spent time with us on a Friday evening. It's so important that you spent time with us. We hope that we could be at value to all of you as a group. On behalf of my team, Satya, Ishmit, Kunal, Kali. We are a very small team, but we are a very effective team, right? And we are very passionate about this whole part of SRE. Thanks, Srinath. It was pretty late for you, going to be about 10:30 Sydney time. But as I said, Srinath, we should do more in
I am with
APAC,
you on that.
APAC,
I am
Australia.
definitely with you on that, Suresh. This is a session I could not have missed, come what may.
Yeah.
So I'm glad I had this session. Very informative and impressed with the content.
Right.
There is a lot in the current customer that I'm working with. We are neck deep into SRE journey, and everybody is on board with the concept.
Right.
But yes, we do have our own niggles because, like you rightly said, people have their own interpretation and misinterpretation, which is what I'm trying to sort out.
Right.
I will connect with you separately.
Sure.
There are quite a few training opportunities that I would like to explore with you guys.
Absolutely. Thanks so much. I see some familiar names. Shiva had been with us in some of the programs. Thank you so much. Sumit said he has already done some of the work. Some people are new. Welcome to the family. I always tell that TaUB is always here to embrace you. As I said, taking you beyond. We want to take you from where you are today to envision outcomes. I've been conscious of the time. Thank you so much for your time and effort today. And we look forward to seeing you all successful in your journey. Whether you pick TaUB Solution, doesn't matter. If there is anything that we could be of help or assistance, we do that. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, LinkedIn, and reach out to us, info@taubsolutions.com. Visit our website. I'm looking forward to seeing you all great over the period of time. Thank you so much, everyone. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks. And Swapna, we'll connect on LinkedIn later. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Cool.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Take care. Bye.
Thank you.